Yeah, it's interesting too the way he tells the story, particularly the story of Scaevola, perhaps. It's very visual. We have this picture of Scaevola coming in, standing in front of the tribunal, the platform on which the king was sitting. There's a crowd all around. He takes his time. It's quite a long, elaborate sentence while he works out, which is it? Is it going to be that man or is it going to be that one over there? They both look very similar. One of them is Porsenna, one of them is the scribe. But it's an extremely elaborate periodic sentence, lots of clauses in it. Timens sciscitari uta Porsenna esset. De ignoranda regem semet ipse appareret quis esset. Quo temere traxit fortuna facinus, scribam pro rege obtruncat. Lots of different clauses as he works it all out. Then he launches himself into the crowd. You can see him really wielding his bloody sword. Everybody's running around. He's dragged back, and there he is again in front of a tribunal again. And then he moves into his direct speech, where he delivers with great solemnity. Comes over to a modern is really pretty pompous, but this is doubtless the sort of archaic solemnity that you associate with somebody who is speaking with the grandeur appropriate to being an early Roman. But we've also got to remember that a lot of this is actually delivered. It's for performance. This is somebody in front of a room. This is somebody who is really going to relish going into the direct speech. Livy himself, doubtless, in front of a room of people listening, of auditores. And then we get this, be afraid, be very, very afraid. And don't be afraid of a battle line. Don't be afraid of any battle. It's just for you, uni tibi, and it's a one-for-one combat, cum singulis. It's a wonderful conclusion at the end. And then you've got the enemy. We've got Porsenna, who is frightened, certainly. You've got him leaping forward from his sedes. You can again really visualize. It's very, very, very dramatic. And he says, well, if you are on my side, what I'd say to you is Macte virtute. Macte virtute, well, this is nobody knows quite what it means, really. It's something like, well done, young man. Bravo. It's the sort of thing that one would say to a young man who has really done well on the battlefield. He clearly has that great admiration. But now what I'll do to you is I'll send you back untouched and unviolated. And it's the same phrase that comes back with Cloelia as well. It's a double act, and the fact it's a double act, first the boy, then the girl, is rather brought out in the language of it. And then when we move on to the Cloelia, it's interesting how it builds up to a climax. It's quite difficult to build up to a climax after you've had a young man throwing his hand into the fire, and so well caught, so well described, so dramatically. And in this case, it's rather dependent on Porsenna himself saying it, that his remark is that the virtue of Cloelia is above supracoclites. This is a reference back to something which has come just before. This is Horatius Cocles, Horatius holding the bridge, which is the first of the 3 episodes. In fact, you've only got the last 2 in this episode. Even greater than the Mucius is because Cloelia has done this. Well, a certain amount of hidden sexism there, perhaps. She hasn't done that much. I mean, she's managed to swim across the river, big deal. On the whole, it's probably a rather bigger thing to stick your hand into a flame, but she is a woman, and so this makes it even more remarkable in this sort of world. So we move to this climax of these 3 things, and then it ends with this rather muted ending of referring to the statue, which is probably where the story originally came from. And it's as if to say, and it still matters. Going around Rome, you can still see this. People still remember it. Yes, one thing it is a bit odd, perhaps. You may think that when you've got somebody who's just killed your scribe, you might be a bit miffed about it. Sending him back unscathed is perhaps surprising. But one important phrase is "iure belli," Right, at the bottom of the page there, under the rights of law, I free you as being, I set you free, I send you back intactus and in realatus. We've got to remember this is warfare, and though one might certainly understand anger, the fact that there's been bloodshed on both sides, one could imagine also that again, respect for the enemy, respect for somebody who is fighting for their own liberty, might mean that you accept that this is the give and take of war. As we tend to say, you don't execute your prisoners of war. Well, you shouldn't. There's a certain amount of that already there, I think. But also, that idea of respect for an enemy like this. You can trace that idea of so marvellous, so morally impressive, that even your enemy sets aside their natural responses and sets aside their anger and gives you proper respect. It's quite a favourite idea in quite a lot of ancient writing.